Anthony, real excited to be with you tonight. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to you on the topic of long-term relationships and some of the causes of why these relationships fail. This is a topic that's near and dear to me because I was in a long-term relationship for more than half of my life, and when you go through an experience like that, it's best that you go through the experience, but also go through the experience and you do some introspection where you actually look at what is the reasons why, the relationship didn't succeed and why there was, failure. Good evening, good evening. And so when you look at the topic represents it's a preventative measure. It's prevention. And there was a statement that was said by probably a lot of older people back in the day where they would say an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. And so what that represents is that it's better to prevent something that could happen or that might happen before it actually does happen. And I'm going to go over just one area of importance when you're dealing with a long-term relationship. And I'm going to deal with the area of communication. I'm going to go over maybe 5 or 6 different sub areas within this topic. And I'm going to go over this topic for maybe 2 or 3 days and just kind of exhaust it. And because I want to help people not make the same mistakes that I made. I often go back to this and I'll make this reference. I wrote this book as a point of learning from the mistakes that I made, learning from being in a relationship for more than half of my life and then failing, seeing things later that I should have saw from the beginning, based upon just not being perceptive, just not wanting to see certain things. So the first thing is, so the first thing when you look at communication, like I said, I'm going to go over a couple of things real quick. There's generally with many, there's a lack of communication. Lack of communication can look like a couple different things, and I'm going over this real quick. And so it can come from the place of misunderstandings, from getting incomplete information. And so what that represents is that when you've been with someone for a while, it's no longer you're no longer in this place of fantasy where everything that they say you're just at their beck and call, like as far as with their words. And so what happens is if you're in a relationship with a person and you're continually communicating with them and talking to them, but in the process of you talking to them, you're not good evening. You're not actually feeling as though you're being heard or that you're being understood. What happens is there's a level of, and I'm going to go. This is one of the most important keys. There's some certain stages that I found that happens with couples because of the lack of communication. And this is just, I always come up with patterns. I see patterns and things. And so this is why I come up with this stuff. And it might sound crazy to other people, but the first thing is, if I'm talking to you and you're someone that's important to me, but you're not hearing me, that's going to bring a level of hurt in most people. And so because there's hurt, then the next thing that happens is whenever someone is hurt, it'll probably take them to a level of bitterness. When we get to a place of bitterness in a relationship based upon not hearing the other person, not listening to what they're saying, always having to be right, always getting the last word, always knowing everything, always shutting down. It's not open dialogue, what's mano a mano, it's mutual beneficial to both parties, then resentment will end up being built, or bitterness will end up being built over time. And where there's bitterness, there will eventually be some form of resentment. When it gets to the point of resentment and disdain, that's when the relationship it's in a very, very it's touch and go. It's in a very, very touchy place, because when you're at the place of disdain, you don't really like that person any longer. And you don't like it because there's a feeling of not being appreciated, or feeling of being taken for granted. Because if they're coming to you, or you're coming to them and you're talking to them and you're trying to share and you're trying to open up and you're trying to understand, but you're not getting anything back, that's going to build a resistance over a period of time. And there will be a shutting down at some point or another. And so this is why the most important thing is communication. When they talk about how to keep our relationship together, it's through our communication. It's different than talking to someone, having a conversation with someone, and communication. Communication represents, we're going to have a dialogue, not a monologue where, like I'm doing now, it's a monologue. I'm just talking, I'm sharing information. A dialogue, you're sharing something, I'm sharing something. So it's mano a mano, it's give and take, it's exchange of information. exchange of information, into me listening to you, you listening to me. And so the second thing would be, um, like I said, you have to make sure that the person is feeling like they're being seen. Communication is one of the best ways to let someone know that they're being seen. And when they're talking, and this is something that I get a complaint about this with family members that talk to me on the phone. I can't tell you how many people, and even some of the two women I dated, they all say the same thing to me, so I know it's true. It's about me. When they're talking to me on the phone, I'm like silent. You don't hear nothing, and they're like, "Are you still there? Are you asleep?" This is what people ask me on the phone because I'm intentional. I make it my business to be intentional, to hear people, to listen to people when they're talking. I'm not a person, I don't like to do a lot of talking. I've never been a big talker. So when someone else is talking, I feel like if they're a person that's I consider important enough to be in my life, or someone I'm coaching or whatever, there's something that I can gather from them. There's something I can receive from them. Because you might be the only source where they can have a place where they can pour out their heart, and they can share an experience where they can feel like someone actually cares. So it's important that we actually hear. My grandfather always say you got two ears and one mouth for a reason. And so yes, I'm there. I'm just giving you my undivided attention. And so many people aren't used to that. They're not used to that. Third thing is, this thing happens. The thing that I notice is that this communication issue happens earlier on in the relationship. It happens through just living life. Because when you first meet a person, we're at our best. We're in our 20s, we're at our fittest, we're at this, we're at that. But the point with all of this is that we allow certain things to go by, and we don't many times, and they're not addressed. They're not addressed initially. And so as you get longer and longer, and this is what I'm talking about, these long relationships, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, the way that you set this thing up, the way you establish it from the beginning, as it gets further down the road, as things get longer and longer down the road, it's easy for things to slip through, because at some point you start kind of taking the person for granted, maybe a little bit, as far as you're not maybe as attentive, and maybe you're just so used to each other, and all the initial thrill is gone. But the thing is, everybody they need that unity. They need that oneness. That's part of it why they're in union, because it's part of you wanting to join with someone and be in communion, right? And so the problem with this, again, is often something that starts early on in the relationship. It's something that starts early, but it's not really discussed. But then later on, it's an issue, because it could be this type of thing that when you're talking, and I see this in couples all the time, because when I used to be, like, when I first started out in construction, I would go in couples' houses all the time, and there was always one, and I don't want to say which one, but there always generally was one that when a couple was talking, one would overtalk the other in the process of them talking, which is disrespectful. I don't care who it is. It's disrespectful, because your person is talking. What they're saying, when someone interrupts you while you're talking, they're saying that what you're saying is not that important. It's not more important than what I need to say. Yes, you're excited. Yes, you got ideas. All that stuff is great. But there should be enough restraint to understand that how's my person going to feel if I right now need to blare out and say everything I need to say, instead of understanding where they are and what are their needs, and their need could be just the vent. That's another thing. Part of communication isn't always telling somebody something or talking to somebody. Part of it sometimes is just allowing your person to just get some stuff out, just talk. Just get, because some people don't write. Me, I write. I don't necessarily have to talk to people. And the only person that I generally do talk to is a very, very wise person, two wise people. But if people don't write, they need some kind of an outlet. This is why I suggest to individuals all the time, you should be writing. Pretty much every day I write, not every day, but pretty much every day I sit down and I write, and I talk about the things that have happened throughout my day. I talk about the things that I'm grateful for. I highlight the things that could be overlooked if you're not in a conscious enough mindset to see that this is a blessing. Even if it's, you got a payment on something, even if it wasn't something huge, you got A small seed is enough, is a seed. It's something to start something or something to get something going. That's kind of my point. So that's another point. It's something established often earlier in the relationship. We're talking to each other. I mentioned that. Talk to be understood. Another important part is when you're communicating, communicate with your person to be understood. This is why I suggest, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later, that if you're having a disagreement, do not start using jargon like gaslighting, narcissist, this, that, and the other, kitchen sinking, blah, 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 whatever, and all this stuff that people use, because it is not going to help you get and build this relationship and get closer together. It's going to keep you further apart, because when you automatically call that other person some name outside of who they are, it's disrespectful. I don't care who it is. It could be the man, it could be the woman, it could be whomever. Anything that we're calling them, or we're classifying them, or we're putting on them, it's not going to build closeness to the person. It's going to keep you and that person separated, because now all of a sudden they're going to defend what you've said. I'm not a gaslighter. I'm trying to tell you the truth. Because most of the time people have to answer to what someone says to them. The majority of people that you're going to meet in society, they have to answer to what someone says to them. It's not normal for people to not care. They have to defend, because they have to protect their honor. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the way we're made. Okay. 3. Hold on, wait a minute. Okay. Ineffective conflict resolution. I should have said that a little bit earlier. But part of the ineffective conflict resolution is, like I was saying earlier, do you want to solve the issue that's at hand, or do you want to just be right? Many people want to be right. I tell any person that I date, I don't care about being right. I don't care about being right. You can be right. You can have that. I don't need it, because to me, it's not that important. We should be mature enough that we don't have to be right, but that we want to come to a resolution and come to a place of understanding. Because to me, it's more important that whatever we're doing is right, versus me having to be. If we're in a place of having to be right, that's an arrogance. When there's arrogance in a relationship, it's going to fail. Pride goes before destruction, goes before a fall. Thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for tapping the screen. Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for tuning in. My schedule's been like, it's about to get crazy again, but I'm trying to stay consistent on here and share some information that I believe that can help people to transform their lives. So, do you communicate when you have disagreements to resolve it, or do you communicate to be right, or that you want to be right? One of the worst things that you can do, and I mentioned this on a class that I taught on TikTok a couple of years back, is to name call and start belittling a person. That's all stuff that you can't take that stuff back after the argument's over. You can't take that stuff back. And plus, it shows what's in your heart, what you were really thinking and what you were really feeling about them. Especially if it's something concerning their appearance or something concerning whatever, something like that. That stuff is something that's in your heart, and it's in their thoughts. So how do you think that person is going to feel? Again, this is all about building the person. Or are we willing to build be in the process of building each other? Because it's not one person. Like I saw a post on Instagram, and this young lady wrote on there that when her husband has, she has. When he doesn't have, she doesn't have. And basically the summary of what she wrote, and I'm paraphrasing. And when she struggles, he struggles. And so basically, to paraphrase what the young lady was saying, is that, their goal is to have a balanced relationship. And of course, it's not best to both be in the place of not having. But the context of what she wrote, I understood what she was saying, because it's about, you being you matching your person. And sometimes you're going to be on 80 and the other person might be on 20 because of all of the things that are going on around them. So, but still, you want to come up to whatever that 100% is. Maybe you're at 50 and maybe they're at 40. Brene Brown, she talks about that. You need to find out where your spouse is. Or, like she says that she talked to her husband and said, "Yo, where are you at today?" He said, "Oh, yo, babe, I'm at 20 today." She said, "Okay, I'm at 80. I got you." And then the next day, "Yo, babe, I'm at 50. Where you at?" She said, "I'm like 60. So, okay, we're good." So it's checking in. And so checking in is more than just, again, there's difference between talking. I talk to my friends, but to me, I want to conversate with someone that's special. I want to have an in-depth and deep conversation with that person. Something that stimulates you, and especially if it's something that's appealing to you. Are you type of person that likes people that have intelligent conversations? Is that something that you find attractive? If it is, then that's something that you need. All right. Hear them out. The second thing is, are you willing to hear your person out? When you've been in long-term relationships, it gets easier and easier to dismiss them, like, I don't hear that. Kind of dismiss each other. But this is why I'm sharing this. You don't want to take your person for granted. If you want this thing to last, if you have something, you want it to last. Not if you're ready to have a hot girl summer and you're ready to do all this craziness that people are doing. But if you want your relationship to last, and you've had some years, 15, 20, 18, 30, whatever, and you want it to continue to last, it's important that we put priority on that person that you've decided to be in that relationship with. But one of the challenges is, when you met that person, you met them generally, if you're like me, I met my person in my 20s. So when I met her in my 20s, we both were young and sexy, and we had the fit bodies and this, that, and the other, and so on and so forth, and we were aligned in our thoughts. We were aligned in what we wanted. We were aligned in most things at that time, and in our 20s. By the time we got divorced, I was late 50s. We were no longer aligned. Even though we went to the same church every week, we went on vacation, we slept in the bed together, we did this, did that. We were aligned when we would go to the jazz. We would go to a jazz festival every year in Pennsylvania. We pull the convertible out, drive to Pennsylvania, go there for the weekend. We were aligned and stuff like that. But I'm saying the things that were the value things and the most important things, and somewhere along the line, we had drifted in different departments, in different directions. But it happened so gradually and so inconspicuously that by the time you realize it, it was already too late. It was already too late. And so the events that took place during and after were a direct cause of the separation. It was inevitable, because two can't walk together except they are in complete agreement. If you are not agreeing with your person, and if you are with a person, and one other thing is that, I got to go over this, if you're with a person and you're trying to have a conversation with them about something, and every time you try to talk to them about something, they shut down. They don't want to talk about it. That's their way of handling what they would call stressful situations or disagreements. They're mature enough to talk about everything else to everybody else, but all of a sudden, when you and them are having a conversation to try to figure this thing out where y'all can grow and things can get better and so on and so forth, all of a sudden, oh, I don't like confrontation, I don't want to talk, and nobody's raising their voice, and it's not some aggravating conversation. It's the type of thing where you can talk and say everything you got to say and get it all out, and I can understand and listen to you and even regurgitate back to you what you said, and listen from a place of not listening to rebuttal or listen to argue or listen to debate, but listening to understand you. Because if you really want that person and they're important to you, you're not going to just listen to them. You're going to listen to them because you want to understand the way that they're thinking in this moment. Because none of us understand each other completely, even if you've been with each other for years. Because there's parts of us, all of us probably, that we don't share with everybody. We don't share every single part of us with people. And if you've ever been in that type of situation, it's very frustrating, because you're trying to talk and have a conversation to bring a resolution, to resolve something, to try to understand how can we mend this? How can we fix this? Because I feel like something's broken. I can't quite put my fingers on it. I can't quite understand it. And especially if you're the type of person, because I made a video earlier and I posted it up on YouTube before I got on here, about an hour or so before I got on here. And the video is about, why do we keep attracting certain people? And one of the things that I found as I've been doing research is it's basically because they see how good your heart is. And part of the reason why they see how good your heart is because you have this hero complex, or you have this thing where you want to go in and you want to fight the battle. You want to help this person. You want to, be there for them. You want to save them. And I'm not saying save them like a savior, but I'm saying you want to be there as a source to help them. And I have women that I talked to as far as in coaching that did it, and I had men that did the same thing. And all of them had that we all have that common thread or common thing. We all have this thing in common where we were trying with our pure heart to do our best and trying to be there as a source to help these people and trying to be the best that we could. But sometimes we're reaching towards a person that doesn't know or doesn't want or doesn't understand the significance of healing. It doesn't understand the importance of communication. This is why this is the stuff that has to be discussed. This is the stuff that, Lataya, this is the stuff that has to be discussed or understood before you get into a long-term or a relationship with them. Because if you're in a long-term relationship with them, what happens is, yes, you can start out with chemistry, but in order for it to be compatibility, you're going to have to, in order for you to go to the whole 9 yards till the end, it's going to take a lot. And so things like this are critical. They're important. Because if there's breakdowns in communication, and this is only the first area that I'm talking about, there's probably 5 or 6 other areas because I looked up some, I was studying some of the areas and why couples that have been in, because there's so much of this going on right now. People that have been married for 20 years, 30 years, like myself, divorced, 35 years, 28 years, 25 years. All these people with these long-term relationships are getting divorced. And part of it is because they got married in their 20s. Now all of a sudden, they're looking at each other and like, okay, we raised kids and, we focus more on the kids than we did on each other. And there's all these things that happen from year 1 to year 20. And in the process of that, someone or both got distracted. They got distracted on the two. When it says two, the two shall become one. That's what it meant. It didn't mean that you're two going to become 4. And yes, of course, yeah, you're strangers, as Lataya is saying in the comments. Thank y'all for anybody that's in here. Thank you for the taps, the shares, the likes. I'm just on here sharing a little bit of information because I want people to understand the importance of, if you are in a long-term relationship, you have to monitor where you are in that relationship if you want success. Because there's little things that can happen over a period of years, what can allow you and that person to start straying and moving in different directions based upon you just not being consciously aware of what's going on. By taking things for granted things that you're just overlooking because you're working, you're raising kids, you're doing this, you're doing that. And there's so many couples that their kids is the reason why they end up drifting in different directions. It could be anything. So to me, I believe that we're commanded not to allow anything to pull us asunder, to pull us apart. We're not supposed to allow anything around us to pull us apart. It's got to be you and that person are the king, whoever they are. That's why you have to make sure that this is a compatible relationship. In other words, we are both aligned in our values. That's why you got to know what your values are. What are the things that you value? Do you value family? Do you value commitment? Do you value spirituality? I mean, what are your true values? What are your make or breaks? And how are you aligned with those make or breaks? Are you committed to them? Is it something that you do all the time? Are you consistent? Are you persistent? Is this something that you do without someone else having to tell you? Or is it something that you do whenever you feel like it? Are you truly committed? So the third thing would be, or the second thing is hearing them out completely. Are you willing to hear someone out completely and not saying anything? That takes restraint. That takes maturity. That takes being grown. That's why I talk about maturity, emotional maturity. Just people being emotionally mature enough to, yes, you have something to say, but holding yourself in enough with restraint. And even if you got to write something down in the process of them talking, no disrespect, but write something down just so you don't lose your train of thought. If that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. Because again, it's about allowing that person to know that they are seen. But not only are they seen, but I hear you. I hear you. What you're saying is important to me because you're important to me. I know that what I tell you or what I show you with my actions is if you're talking to me and I'm not listening to you and I'm not really paying attention and I'm not, and yes, there's sometimes when we're busy doing something, we're not paying 100% attention, but this is why there should be certain things that should be set up. I tell everybody that anybody that has been in my life, especially, the last two or whatever, I'm a busy person. I run a couple of business. Whenever you come to me, you need to let me know this is a serious conversation. Let me know between that and just regular chit chat. If it's a serious conversation, I'll shut everything down and I give 100% attention. If it's just you talking about sports or something like that, yeah. Okay. And I'm still doing what I'm doing because a lot of times I'm in the middle of doing something because I work at home a lot of times. Oh, I forgot to, my video. Good Lord. I didn't record my video. Okay, whatever. Go ahead. But, um, so, um, So you got to know yourself. I always go back to this over and over again. You have you have to know yourself. Know um, know your makes or breaks. Know the things that you need. Know the things that you're strong in and things that you aren't strong in. This is something I have to talk about because it's something that's a weakness of mine. I wasn't always, especially when I was younger, I was so driven by business and work and building something that I was short with everybody. I didn't care who you were around me. I was short with people because I was always in hustle mode. Because I believed in that whole that crazy belief that you got to hustle all the time and strong, all this grind. That's a bunch of nonsense. I don't believe it any longer, but I used to believe it when I was younger, and so I worked all the time. And I didn't have time for a bunch of foolishness because my goal was to build something for my family, and that's part of the reason why I was so hurt once my relationship was over and I no longer had that goal, because that goal I was trying to establish for my family, for my sons and my ex-wife at the time and all those around there. And I said this before. One day I was talking to my coach. And I was early in my healing journey and I was griping and I was complaining and I was hurt and I was disappointed and all the stuff that you go through. And and she could relate because like I said, my coach had been married for 38 years, I think it was. And most of the stuff that I talked to her about or asked her about, she had already been through. And as I was talking to her, I was telling her that I felt alone because I was alone all the time, and there wasn't anybody around, and I was kind of in that mode of, just not really missing what I used to have as far as my family. I wasn't missing my relationship, but I was missing as far as like my grandkids and the different things, and so through that process, um, I just didn't want to make the wrong decisions through it. Because I understand that when we are in a need of something or we lack in something, that's when we're susceptible to make bad decisions. That's why they often say never go food shopping when you're hungry. Same thing with don't get involved in a relationship when you just desperately need one, because you're going to pick a person just to satisfy your needs physically, but you're not going to get anything emotionally or anything else out of it. It's the same thing. And so with knowing that, I don't know, I was just at a place where I was just like really, really low. And like I said, this was early on in the journey. And because when you had been with people for years, all my sons, I mean, I raised them. I mean, some dads aren't in their kids' life. I was getting my kids' life from like little. I mean, and they're older. I mean, my sons aren't like little kids. And I'm just telling this as an example. Because I mean, they got their own kids now, and so or two of them out of the three though. And so because of that, that was a transition for me that I had to learn to. I grappled with it. I wrestled with it because I had to learn how to understand that things were different and it couldn't be the way that it was. And part of in my mind, I felt like, well, I shouldn't be the one getting punished because I wasn't the one that broke the relationship up and this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 blah. And there are all these reasons that we have as to why things should be or shouldn't be. I appreciate y'all being here and listening to my story. and and because maybe it's something that somebody can relate to, because maybe it's something that somebody's going through right now. And because I come from a family that's very family oriented. My parents Again, my dad was a pastor, and so we had people at his house after service or just any time, all the time. There were loads of people around at all times. There was always a coffee brewing and a grill cooking. There was always something going on, and just a lot of energy and people. And because I come from a musical family, would be singing, keyboards and drums and just noise. And so I went from all of that. And then even when my boys are here, because all my boys play music in some capacity or another, keyboards and bass. And so now everything is quiet. It's just me. It's just me in this house. And the thing is, when now it's quiet, you have a lot of time. And I got to here again. It gives you a lot of time for introspection. This is where this was birthed. This was birthed in all the quiet. This was birthed in all of the hurt, because I needed to find a way of understanding what I was feeling. And so I wrote, because I wasn't talking to anyone. I wrote, and I wrote all the time. One of the biggest keys with understanding what to do not to repeat a cycle is to understand what you did to break the cycle, or what you did that caused the failure or that caused the breakup. This is why I can teach about being in a long-term relationship and failing, because I did it. I failed it. And it's not funny. It's not funny, but it is. It's not funny, but it's part of life, that you're going to have some things that are going to come up, and you're going to have stumbling blocks, and you're going to have difficulties. And that's it. That's all I'm going to share with y'all. I must have went too long because y'all leaving anyway. So I don't know. All right, y'all. Y'all got any questions? Anything else y'all want to discuss? I got some other stuff I'll go over tomorrow. But yeah, that's all. This is phase one, and I'll go over a couple other phases in the next couple of days, tomorrow, and blah blah blah, and so on and so forth. And so, y'all have any questions? You got any questions? Put them in the chat. Appreciate the likes, subscribes, follows, all that good stuff. I don't know who's still in here, but appreciate y'all being in here. Appreciate y'all watching. Appreciate y'all listening to my stories and my rants and my shenanigans and all that good stuff. Got any questions? Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. Thank you, each and every one of you. So, all right. Well, all right. I'll talk to y'all soon. See y'all soon. Have a great night. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom.